Hey everybody, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1. As always, hope you're having a good week. Busy for me this week. Lots of things going on. I want to mention, if you hadn't had a chance, go over, hit the merch store and have a look at the shirts. Let me know in the comments if you want to see some other designs. Before we get really rolling here, let me comment on something that kind of was out of the ordinary from last week's show. So first off, I messed up the description. That was a copy of the previous program that I forgot to change when I copied it over into the new video. So I added the link for the merch store, but I didn't actually change what the show was actually about. So if there was a little confusion there, that's my mistake. Apologies. Second, YouTube. What happened on YouTube? Normally, I am getting anywhere from 80 to, 150. Sometimes it spikes up to about 200 views a week, which is, it is what it is. But most of the views are on other platforms. Rumble, I tend to get more views on Rumble than I do on YouTube. Well, last week something changed on YouTube, and we got over 1,400 views for the show, and a number of new subscribers from that one episode. So thank you all for clicking in, watching the show. Thank you all for subscribing. Welcome to new viewers. I thank you. Thank you very much. I certainly do appreciate everybody out there who supports the program. I don't know what we did to get the algorithm to recommend the show to you, but I'm thankful that it did, and I hope you guys continue to watch and listen. So anyway, with that, let us kind of dive into the content. So if you have read the description of the video, you know what we're going to look at a possible alternative factor in the attack on Iran. So let me lay down some guidance on that before we kind of hit the main points. I recognize that there are much larger pictures at work here, so when I tell you what I think is at play in this specific situation, I don't want you to think that I have perhaps lost sight of the bigger picture. What I'm focused on right now is this specific segment or phase of whatever the larger plan may or may not actually be. Okay, we see a lot of speculation about what the bigger plan or concept of operation or MO or whatever you want to call it with, the cabal, the people, the powers that be, them, whatever you want to call them. We see a lot of speculation on that, so I'm going to avoid that topic, bigger picture today. All right, let's get into the why, actually, really the main reason I think this operation in Iran is taking place right now. And let's start off with the hypothesis, and then I'll kind of work the evidence for this. I believe that the real reason that this is taking place right now has nothing to do with Iran. The real target of this operation is Hezbollah in Lebanon. This attack was to provoke a sympathetic reaction from Hezbollah to get Iran to kind of prod them and say, hey, use their proxies to strike at Israel, whatever. And that would be justification for Israel to take action in southern Lebanon on the order of what happened in Gaza. Go back and look at the timeline of events. Notice that in the beginning, we saw significant participation from Israel in the attack being publicly acknowledged. They were openly saying that Israel was striking these targets, that Israel was hitting here, whatever. That has almost disappeared from the reporting at this point. We still hear from it for some targets, such as the attack on the gas fields in Iran yesterday, but for the most part, Israel has shifted their focus, which includes a ground invasion, to Lebanon. They're going after Hezbollah just like they did going after Hamas in Gaza. And Iran has become kind of a secondary aspect for them. And I believe that Israel demanded that the U.S. launch this attack in order to give them that pretext to invade Lebanon. They want to do this to wipe out the most local threats to them, and they cannot do that unless Iran is also tied up to a larger conflict so that its resources and efforts and attention is split, and it can't really support itself and Hezbollah at the same time. So that's the position. That's what I kind of think is going on right here. What do I have to support this? Well, Trump's reluctance to go full tilt against Iran and destroy its energy capacity. Iran has locked down the Strait of Hormuz, which everyone knew they were going to do that. Don't fool yourself into thinking that anyone on the inside of this believed that was impossible or not likely. Everybody knew that was going to happen. I think the only thing that was actually surprising to the administration or the planners and the people inside of the administration was Iran attacking the other Gulf states in such a wide, across such a wide range of targets. I don't think they fully expected those hotels and the oil industry to be targets. I think they really expected it to be confined to the bases, the U.S. bases in those areas. They thought those were going to get hit, or they anticipated that. Those are big, fixed targets. Everybody knows you can't do anything about that. You can throw your missile defenses out there, but you're not going to catch everything. That's kind of a known. I don't think anyone expected Iran to go after hotels where they thought U.S. personnel might be staying, the oil industry in those nations, the gas industry, all that stuff. I think that was a least likely course of action that would have been on the table when they looked at that and said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Iran's not going to do that. But Iran chose to take that route, and that route, however, I think has not drawn a reprisal course of action from the U.S. We have largely avoided hitting these big major oil and gas industry targets in Iran that we could do. We bombed military targets on Karg Island, which is Iran's major oil loading facility out in the Gulf, and that proves that point that the U.S. could indeed strike these targets at will and obliterate them if the administration wanted to do that. They could have just carpet bombed that island and just wiped out the capability of Iran to use it to load oil after all this is over. U.S. and Israeli bombers roaming at will over Iran proves that if the U.S. or if Israel, if we wanted to, electrical generation and distribution systems could also be destroyed, which would significantly reduce the ability of everything in the country to operate. Water facilities, sewage facilities, all those things could be systematically wiped out, as the U.S. has done in the past to other countries. And it was done to dismantle, to topple the government, the structure that was in place there. If you really wanted to do that, you could wipe out all of those systems, or a significant number of them, to cause this major disruption for the people that live in that country. Smash it all, and you could smash it all and just walk away. Hey, we did what we wanted to do. We caused the chaos, and now we're walking away from it. Now, it would be an absolute disaster to do that. It would be condemned pretty widely to do that. It would lead to humanitarian crisis. But if you wanted to do that, you could do that. And that's not the route we've gone down. Israel has bombed this gas facility yesterday, and Trump immediately today publicly states that he's against that. He does not want that. He has told Israel not to do that anymore. Don't hit those facilities. That's not part of our plan. It's not his plan to do that. And I really do believe that he was thinking that we would launch this operation and the CIA would be successful in stirring up the Iranian public into revolt. And that did not go the way that Trump thought it was going to. And honestly, I believe that's because the CIA had no intention of doing that. Or they lied to him and told him that they could do it, even though they still don't have the capacity to do that, or they've lost the capacity to do that. Iran has collapsed the human intelligence network that CIA and Mossad had in place, and they've been unable to rebuild it yet. I think it's a matter of timing. I think eventually they will rebuild that, but I don't think that the network that they have in place, I don't think has the reach that it had prior to the things that were taking place a few months ago when they were stirring up revolts and street riots and those kind of things. Iran cracked down pretty hard on that. The regime took a lot of people into prison and killed a lot of people that were responsible for those kind of things. And they haven't had time to rebuild that. But I believe that they probably told the president that, oh yeah, we think the people are ready to revolt, even though that they really have no idea that was what was going to happen there. Now that's all on Donald Trump for listening to him and trusting their positions on this, but what can you do in his place unless you are willing to absolutely gut that organization and other intel agencies, as I have said, and many other people have said, this needs to be done. You needed to go in there and tear out those roots of the people that were in those organizations. That is the deep state, and you didn't do anything to it. Okay, you kind of get what you get because you didn't do what you should have done. Okay, unless you're willing to do that, you're going to be in the position where you're subject to those people providing you information that you're going to make decisions off of. Those are the people that are supposed to be in the know. They're supposed to know the truth, or at least have real educated guesses on the truth, and they're supposed to give that information to you to make decisions on. And you can't trust them. So Trump does not want to take the operation in that direction to preserve the stability of Iran after this has reached the conclusion. I think that's kind of indicative of where he is at right now. Now, let's go back to Trump stating that Israel hit the gas fields on its own and not in coordination with the U.S. That is a bad thing. That in and of itself is indicative of exactly what Tulsi Gabbard let out of the bag today. She was quoted as saying that, the U.S. has its agenda in this operation and Israel has its agenda, and those things aren't necessarily the same. And that right there is a big tell to me. That is a red flag that while we may have been pushed into this or ordered to do this by Netanyahu, we are not really in the loop regarding what Israel has planned for this. And that leaves open a host of possible alternative plans and agendas, but like I said, what I am suggesting is that the one that's kind of hiding out in the open is the one that's taking place. Israel is happy to deal damage to Iran, but if you notice again, they're the ones taking credit for hitting the IRGC. That's the Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's Iran's special operations organization. And they're the primary means of how Iran supports and arms groups like Hezbollah and how they carry out asymmetrical warfare all over the world and in the Gulf region. So in other words, they're taking out part of the leadership of Hezbollah. So if you want to destroy that threat, then you need to hit those people and degrade their ability to support these tactical arms of Hezbollah out in the field. So again, it kind of emphasizes the point that Israel's focused much closer to its territorial space, and it is really only striking Iran when it is a direct benefit and in direct support, a shaping operation to what they are doing there in Lebanon. And think of it this way, Israel is headhunting specific targets, and they don't care so much about hitting every drone site or missile launcher or radar site, command and control. All that stuff they're leaving for the U.S. to deal with. They're going after leadership and special targets. So they're very much interested in degrading Iranian capability in those areas, but they don't really care if Iran has an air defense system or if they're launching drones at U.S. bases. They don't care about that at all. That is completely secondary and outside of the scope of what they're doing. I saw it mentioned in some comments or on Telegram, something I was reading, that it looked like that air operations have shifted to more standoff attacks because Iran still has some air defense capability in place. And in fact, as I'm putting this show together, an F-35 was hit by an air defense missile and had to make an emergency landing at an alternative airfield. This was a U.S. F-35. It was not shot down, as Iran first reported, but it was forced to land and is damaged. So, mission kill either way. I can't say that I'm shocked, as the F-35 program has had its problems, but we also don't know that F-35s have been roaming all over Iran and nothing happening to them. So could have been a system failure, or maybe the gunners just got lucky. Perhaps they have some means that they have discovered and they're improving their accuracy. Who knows at this point? But it does highlight that Iran still has capability. So it stands to reason that you would curtail your more, let's call them brazen, air operations if you have perhaps ran out of easy targets and you have no intention of doing anything more. Why risk pilots and aircraft if you're really not interested in doing anything more than what we have done to this point? Almost as if this is a distraction. And yes, Iran can claim that it's because they have a, superior air defense network, but, getting your leader's house blown to shit and him and some of his family killed kind of puts to rest that kind of boasting and claim. Which brings me to the last topic of the show, but let me close out on the primary thing here before we hit that. I think given the evidence, and perhaps there's more out there that I'm just not getting into, maybe it'll become even more clear over the next few days. It is clear to me that Lebanon is what Israel really wants to tackle. They want to knock them out of the game, period. And Iran, at least for them, is a sideshow, and it's only giving them pretext to do what they really wanted to do. We're just running interference for them and taking all the political fallout for it. And Trump is someone that they're more than willing to sacrifice for that goal. Now, that all said, what has happened to Benjamin Netanyahu? Multiple videos came out that are supposed to prove that he is alive and well, but those videos look as fake and AI as the previous one that got called out almost immediately and started raising all these questions about if he's even still alive. Now, I personally believe that he is alive, although I suspect that he is very much wounded and likely unable to appear in public due to these injuries. I think he is likely in a hospital in Europe and not even in Israel at this point, and maybe some of his family were also injured or worse in that attack. So they've gone completely silent. They are laying low to avoid giving away their position where they are at. I think if Netanyahu was actually dead, they would have announced that, and it would have been used as the reason to escalate this into an all-out war. It would have been, oh my gosh, we can't stand for that. This is going to mean a ground invasion. Maybe even cause Israel to go full nuclear on Iran. It doesn't matter that Israel killed the Ayatollah. You guys know how all this goes. All of that would be forgotten immediately. That would not be the reason. This would not be a retaliatory strike. It would be an act that we must respond to. So I think that points to the likelihood that Netanyahu is still alive, although not fully presentable. He may even be in a coma or something like that. One wonders how long they can keep up the charade if he is seriously wounded. How are they going to orchestrate, his retirement from office and his disappearance from public life? How are they going to square that with these videos that they've put out? So they'll have to come up with some other thing that happened to him to cause him to be in a condition that he has to step down. And perhaps they're going to use that to try to get him out of some of his legal troubles. But those are all probably bridges that they'll burn once they get to him. But for now, I think he is alive. He's just incapable of appearing in public. So Israel's maybe somewhat headless, which is, again, given what we've seen and how they are operating in this environment, that's perhaps even more dangerous, which is maybe why Trump has been so chaotic over the last 2 weeks. There's certainly many reasons that could be causing that, but maybe he fears what they are going to do more than anything that Iran is going to do. Anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab. Nice Crew Digital. Visit the mothership website. Links in the description. Come over to the merch store and get yourself a t-shirt to support the channel. And I'll see you on the next episode.